Hi, I'm Marco Krasavich, the National Vice President for Colonization and Membership, for another episode of Roadside Assistance, where we help you, our brothers, the national fraternity, in addressing membership education through the road to wisdom. And today I have a burning question that's been bothering me since this very began, and I just have to get out of me. Where did my tests go? What did you do with them? Where can I get them back? And what is the reason for no tests?
Well, let me tell you, they're not in a hidden appendix anywhere.
Okay, it's good.
So it's not like you're missing them somewhere in the book. They're not on the website. We had when we were developing this, when the Curriculum Development Committee was going through and we were creating these lessons, we had a very real conversation about what does assessment look like in Kappa Psi, or what should it look like in Kappa Psi. And we just came sort of to the consensus that we could do better. We can do better than tests. And when you go back in the very beginning of the book, there's some learning intentions, some learning outcomes that we want qualities or understandings that we want candidates to have as a result of the instruction of the process and when they become brothers. And learning the rote information, being able to spout off things, which I think all of us probably had a test in this room when we were going through our candidacy process. We just felt like we could do better, that we wanted to create brothers that were living the values of our organization, that were upholding the values of our ritual, and that we can do better than just spouting off facts and information. Do y'all want to jump in?
Well, for me, part of it is we want this to be an enjoyable experience for anybody that goes through the process to becoming a brother. And let's face it, none of us like tests. When we're going through school, man, I could not wait to go take my music theory test. Man, no, that's not what we do. So we want this to be an enjoyable process for everybody. And I think if we think, okay, well, I got to pass this test, it associates a negative connotation with Kappa Psi. That's not what we want. We want this to be, brotherhood is one of the most important things, I think, that this organization stands for. And that's what we're going to remember is the people. We're going to remember the brothers. We're not going to remember, man, I got to make sure we get this test taken care of. So for me, I think it just removes a negative connotation associated with the process, which to me I think is a really important part of it. I don't know if that's something that feels that way. But
I agree. You should be focused more on the experience versus just, like you said, spitting out rote information. Like, I know the Greek alphabet, I know, and I can tell it to you in 5 seconds, or things like that. I think it's important really to focus on the brotherhood experience and the social experience. Knowing those things that are in this are important, obviously, or we wouldn't have it. But it's not just about you come to class and you take a test. That's not what this process is about. There are other ways that we can assess what brothers are learning during their membership candidate process in a fun way. Like, make it fun to where it's not like, oh, I have a test, I don't know my Greek alphabet, what am I going to do? Like, Brother Krasavich said he was going to be so mad at me, he was going to yell at me out of the DR line. Like, it doesn't have to be like that.
Well, you're not majoring in Kappa Psi.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. What I was going to say is that we're all majoring in other things. We've got this test to worry about, this project to worry about. If you're in band, we got to make sure we're ready for this performance coming up. We don't want this to become a burden to anybody that's going through this. So I think that's really important as well.
Well, and as a person that has a really hard last name, I know that having people have to spell my last name is kind of cruel. So I get that. So I guess I have a couple things then. So one is, how do I know that people have learned what they need to learn? You say, well, you don't need to know the Greek alphabet, but I would like you to know the Greek alphabet because you need to know, which chapter comes before which chapter, or you need to know, like, when we put up a couple letters on the board because we're going to go visit so-and-so, you don't look at that and go, why'd you write a squiggly line?
Right.
But you say, oh, that's a sigma. Okay, well, I only know that from math class. Like, how do you make sure that people actually know things without losing that? Because, okay, I get that maybe tests are bad, and I'm not the biggest fan of organic chemistry, okay, but how do I make sure that they know?
Well, the great thing about this curriculum is that it was developed by educators. Educators sat on that committee, and I'm one of them. And so this program was designed with formative and summative assessments. So formative assessments meaning smaller assessments, more casual assessments along the way, which is why each lesson has discussion questions built in. You can choose to use them, you can choose to use other ones that you come up with on your own, but there's questions that you can pose to have class discussion and hear what people have to say. There's also within the book There are membership candidate responses, and they're throughout the lessons. And this can be used in a variety of ways too. So you can have pose it to candidates and have them respond. You can pose it as a discussion question and everybody can talk about it. You can assign it for a homework and they can work on it with their big brother, or work on it as a class and come back. So those are kind of smaller pieces. We also have the lesson reviews. And so these are great because they can be used in a multitude of ways. They can be used as kind of a little formative assessment at the end, like we just taught lesson 5 on musicianship, and here you go, what do you remember? This is the most important information about lesson 5. Or it can be used as kind of a homework type thing too. It can be used when you're beginning lesson 6 and okay, what did you remember about last week and then lesson 5. So you have these lesson reviews in here too to make sure that brothers are grasping the information. And I think our goal is that you don't have to memorize everything because we have this great device called a phone,
Right.
and everything is at our fingertips, and so you don't have to memorize it where you have to be able to spout it off. You have to be familiar with it. There is information that is important to know. You should know when we were founded. You should know what our colors are. Those are things that you should be able to know, and and we do end up memorizing them because
Right.
it's information we use at our fingertips all
Sure.
the time. But do you need to be able to spout out word for word some of this history? No, because we have our phone and we can go back and reference it.
Right.
And so I think part of it is that mindset that information is at our fingertips and we can go back and reference it. But what we want to do, our goal is to build brothers that are engaged in service, that are engaged in our purposes, that are engaged in the values of our ritual, and are not brothers that maybe don't have those qualities, but they can tell you word for word the history of our organization. We want people that are going to be here and be engaged for life. They're going to come back and give back to their band programs. They're going to come back and give back to the organization. Those are the qualities that we're trying to build in people.
At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Because we were talking about this before we went on camera, is that it's about the people. And that's what you're going to remember about your time at Kappa Kappa Psi. You're not going to remember having to memorize the preamble or whatever it is that you have to do in the chapter. But you're going to remember the people. You're going to remember, I remember we were sitting around this one night having this discussion, and we were laughing about this, or this, that, and the other. We shared this experience together on our road trip to wherever we were to play this football game. So, and that's really what Kappa Kappa Psi is all about. It's for me, that's the bigger part of it. I think we can all say that's the reason we're all here, and we're wanting to give back to the fraternity is because we had so many wonderful memories with the people that we went through all these processes with. So that's the most important thing to me.
So I know this will be a part of another Roadside Assistance, either that will be before or after this, depending on how YouTube works for you. That we'll talk about, well, what if someone, when I have a test, I can say you're a 76% brother, so I'm worried about you keeping in. And so let's take that to the side for a second. Let's just say, well, what are the ways in which I can know that someone is understanding us, right? What are the different forms of assessment then? You kind of gave a couple examples, but like, what is that breadth of knowledge that I can say, am I teaching right? Let's approach it that way. Am I making sure that you're understanding what we are, or am I just sitting up and it's, yeah, you're sitting down there and I'm standing up here and I'm talking and you're just writing words down, but it's not clicking in. So what are my options then in terms of assessment?
Well, we talked about formative assessment earlier, kind of those smaller pieces, but this program also has summative assessments built in. So kind of that larger, greater summary of learning. Are you getting these overall, are you grasping the learning outcomes of the whole program? And so there's a few things built in. If you look at lesson 8, it really is a summative assessment. There's the value bags project, and also the other video project. And so there's some projects built in there at the end that are for the whole class to engage in together that kind of summarizes the entire process. And then we also have the portfolio project, which can be introduced at the beginning of the process, maybe even in the membership candidate orientation meeting. You're saying, hey, here's your options for the portfolio project, and you have all this time, and you're going to present it at the end. And the portfolio project is kind of this summation of learning and of your experience as a membership candidate. And we give a variety of ideas in here, creating a digital poster, a song, a rap, a comic strip, a journal, a blog, a prezi, a scrapbook, and this is not exhaustive. It can be anything, but creating some kind of very personal product that combines the information you're learning with the experiences, the feelings that you're going through as a candidate as you're on the road to wisdom. And so this can be a very powerful project for your chapter, for your class to engage in, but it kind of gets at sort of that summation of learning that you're getting throughout the process, this overall experience of the process. And of course, along the way, you have those lesson reviews, you have the membership candidate responses, you have the discussion. And if you're an education major and this is really exciting to you and this is your passion point, I've even told VPMs that you can do little exit tickets. Everybody take out a sticky note and write down the 3 most important things that you feel like you learned today. Something as simple as that is something that takes 50 seconds for somebody to write something down, and kind of gives you an idea of, okay, I know what I wanted people to grasp. If I asked them to write down the 3 most important things they learned today, did they write it down? And so this isn't exhaustive either. If you can come up with other ways, we would love to have you submit them as activity reviews. And we would love to have your ideas of other smaller ways that you can assess, kind of those formative assessment, or if you have ideas for other summative assessments. That's why we have that process to be able to submit things, so we can continually take your great ideas and add them to this program.
I think a lot of times though, also chapters are getting hung up on the phrase, the wording, tests. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like they're in their head, all they hear is we can't do tests anymore, and they're not looking at this from a different perspective of we still have ways that you can see how people are retaining the information and learning the information. You just don't have to be as hard as a test, making your own test and making the candidates take the test and grading them and be rating them because of a grade that they received might not be to your standards. So you can still, it's going back to that mental shift that we discussed in another video, that it's a different perspective. You're still able to assess instead of test, assess how your candidates are learning the information, but just in a more friendly and brotherly approach to it. Why should they make a C on a test? I mean, they're not there to major in Kappa Kappa Psi. They're there to major in whatever they're, majoring in. So I think it's a mental perspective. It's not a test, but you can assess how they're doing in a brotherly way instead of, being you're failing and you're doing a horrible job.
I think the other thing I'll add to this is some of you may have the mentality, well, I had to take a test. Why doesn't the next group of people have to take a test? And you always have to ask yourself why. Why did we have to take a test? The worst thing you could possibly say is because it's always been done this way. I had to do it, so now these next people have to do it. Well, that's not how it works. As we all know, the world is always evolving, changing, and we as a fraternity need to make sure that we're evolving and changing with the times as well. And I think that this is a way, now that we're moving to assessments as opposed to tests, is a way that we're doing that. So don't ever let the reason, well, it's always been done this way, I had to do it, they do it, hold you back. Be creative, think outside the box. There are plenty of ways to do it in the book, but like I said, submit curriculum activity reviews. So let us know what you're doing, let us know your ideas, because if your ideas are really great, other chapters may be able to benefit from that. 30 other chapters might be able to benefit from your great idea. So you could help really change the culture of the fraternity across the country. So that's something to keep in mind.
Well, and I think you made a great point there, Derek, because I think when you attest, and you said a 76% brother, a test indicates, because, okay, if from a former special education teacher, if I'm a brother that has dyslexia, or if I'm a brother that has a learning disability, and it takes me more than 5 times to learn information, that doesn't make me any less of a great brother
Right.
to be able to do service for my band and service for my chapter, because I can't tell you every single one of the founding fathers at the tip of my fingers. We don't want to create this environment where I'm only a 76% brother because I can only learn 76% of the information, and then I'm berated because you didn't spell that right. You didn't spell Iron Hawthorne Nelson right. So now you can't, we're going to vote and I don't know if you're going to make it. But yet this person is always early to every band practice, always there to set up, always there to tear down, always there for every service project.
It's just a piece of the puzzle. Like, it's just a piece of the puzzle.
Right.
Like everything else you listed off are the other pieces. Brotherhood Service, like your purposes, like they're just all a piece of a puzzle that make the one puzzle. you know.
And it doesn't have to be crammed just into 8 weeks or however long your membership
Yeah.
education process
You
is.
can continue membership ed with your entire chapter. Like you can, the VPM, if the VPM is like, no, my time is done now, like what do I do the rest of my term? No, you can honestly have review sessions every chapter meeting or once a month at your chapter meetings, just to kind of keep, you know, introducing that information back to the chapter.
Well, and that's why you go to workshops, that's why you go to convention, because even now, when I go to convention as an alumnus, I still want to attend sessions to learn from other people in the organization. You know, go to that history of the ritual, go to that, you know, early history of the fraternity, go to those sessions to learn more, because the learning shouldn't stop, and it doesn't all have to be crammed into this idea of membership education. That you are offering a bid to people that you think meet you're honoring outstanding band members through privilege of membership.
Right.
And so you are picking the best of the best to be a part of Kappa Kappa Psi. Well, if they already have those qualities and we are just developing them, this is just a step along the way on the road to wisdom, and there's still more road. There's
Right.
still more road to go. And so I think, you know, you made a great point, Jen, that this is just one piece of the puzzle, and that a test doesn't assess everything that we want candidates to know or be able to do. And in times, you know, it can be an unfair assessment.
Yeah.
Well, this is really great and really helpful. I know for some chapters, you're probably still sitting there saying, okay, but I have more questions. Well, curriculum at kkkpsi.org, that's exactly where you send those questions. And don't hesitate to ask. All of us are learning. The nice thing about being in a fraternity whose motto is striving for the highest is that striving implies you're constantly searching for more
Yes.
knowledge.
Right.
You're constantly asking questions. You're constantly saying, but I think this, how does that work? Guess what? I'm still learning. I have been in the Brotherhood for a long time, and I still feel like I'm a novice at so many things, and that's one of the great things about this organization. So don't hesitate to ask. Don't feel like you're in trouble because you don't know the answer. Don't feel like you're in trouble because you might have a different answer. We are here to help you, and we hope that this is a good start. So we talk to you soon.